Hey everyone, I'm Mark DeGrasse, and you're listening to the AI Branding Podcast. And today we're talking to Josh Hadley, a friend of mine that we met up several times at several different events regarding e-commerce, marketing, business development. He's an expert at Amazon and e-commerce selling. And today we're actually going to launch into talking about the changes in the marketplace, specifically product lifecycle, and just what that means in terms of how you need to develop your brand for longevity and kind of a changing environment where everything needs to happen like 10 times faster. So welcome, Josh. Glad to have you here.
Hey, Mark, excited to be here and one of the initial podcast episodes here.
Hey, thank you for signing up. It's always a new process, and the way I do things, content's always organic for me, where it's like, hey, the first 30 to 100 episodes, you just got to get something out, so you can
Yep.
figure out what works. But I'm very, honored to have you as a guest because I know you're one of the top speakers I've seen speak. And whenever we do the contests of who could come up with the best idea in marketing, like you're always on stage, and I love to see that about you.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I know. I think we officially met our first time in War Room, right? When you
Yes,
were
that was a
running stuff with like Digital Marketer. And then we met back up at Kevin King's $1 Billion Seller Summit
That's right.
earlier this summer. So,
That
yes,
was
it's
an
always,
adventure.
it was an adventure. It was the race around the island was the whole excursion.
Oh my God. I actually missed that. I showed up like the day after or something. I was like,
Oh,
that
did
looks
you?
exhausting.
So it was fun. It was fun.
That's awesome. So let's get into it. I think, I always talk about the changes to the market. Most of my changes are still projected, but what you're seeing in Amazon and e-commerce in general sounds like stuff starting to hit the fan a little sooner. So maybe just walk us through kind of what the product life cycle looked like before and what you're seeing today.
Yeah. We first started selling on Amazon in like the fall of 2016. And so that was still the before it was the glory days of Amazon. Now that I realize, even though at the time it's just so brand new and still, green, I still didn't know everything. Wish I could take that knowledge. We all do that, right? If only I could take what I had, go a
Oh
decade
yeah.
back, I would crush it. But uh we launched, we do a bunch of different like stationery products on Amazon. We quickly grew. So our first full year on Amazon, we did over $1 million in revenue. Now, the nice part about that is that like the products, we were able to continue to grow our brand. I think our first year was like 1 million. Then it went 3 million. Then it went 5 million. Then it went 6.5 million, right? And like we just kept adding new product after new product, and they continued to stack on top of each other. Um, it wasn't until really like 2023 is when I began to
Oh,
see the signs of this happening. And our product life cycle on Amazon used to be like an average of like 3 years, right? You probably like you keep like continuing to grow sales and you do well for maybe like, 2 to 3 years. You're still riding a good wave, and then you'll start to decline. There's increased competition. The market starts to shift a little bit more. That was the story. However, beginning in 2023, at some point in time, that began to shift down to, in my opinion, the new product life cycle on Amazon is 6 to 9 months, unless you have like a big moat around your brand, which is like distribution, you're already in retail stores, right? Or you're a much bigger like brand, you're doing a lot of stuff off of on Shopify. You have a whole bunch of like influencers talking about your product on like an evergreen basis. You've got, Facebook ads, meta ads and stuff. You've got all those things dialed in, and like you're just a bigger brand, right? If you're
mhm.
omnichannel, I think this impacts you less because people are probably searching your brand after they find it in Target, or they're searching for your brand when they see it in the Facebook ad. But for brands that are native on Amazon, which we are, we're an Amazon first brand, that product life cycle has been decimated. And here's why I think that it's been decimated. Amazon has been heavily porting overseas sellers onto their platform, heavily. And in fact, in their recent announcement, they said, in order to take on Shein and Temu, we are going to launch another version of our site, they will have a new section somewhere on Amazon that's going to be, let's call it what it's going to be, low priced crap. All
Ugh.
right. So just exactly what Wish was, what Temu is, low priced generic crap. Amazon's now getting into that game, which is only going to further exacerbate this issue, in my opinion. But Amazon's been so heavily focused on going after these overseas sellers that these guys, and they don't play by the same rules, right?
No.
And I think like number one, legally they don't play by the same rules. They could care less about copyright issues, they could care less about trademark issues, and Amazon brushes it under the rug. And then secondly, the other thing, they don't pay the same, like there are so many loopholes for them to get around import tariffs that it's beyond ridiculous, right? And so there's just massive loopholes for these guys. And so they can make a decent, like, and for them, like a little bit of money goes a long way. So like they can make a lot of money on just hawking crap to US customers. And that's truly what I feel like is happening. So what I feel like is happening is they are now back in the day of like the 2016 era of Amazon courses going crazy. I don't know. I don't personally see that very much anymore in the US market because that ship has sailed. Like it's so hard to launch something new on Amazon now. But I feel like in China, it's probably like it's the heyday of it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so you've got all of these guys that all they do is they have their algorithm set up. And with the advent of AI and all that stuff, it probably makes it 10 times easier. They're constantly watching what new products are getting onto the platform. And as soon as they see them having any moment of success, they're immediately replicating that product and just, how do we make this like the cheapest ridiculous thing, even though the quality is not going to be good? I'm just going to undercut everybody and I'm not going to worry about intellectual property infringement. We're just going to go hard and fast, and we might copy people, and we have 1,000 accounts set up for ourselves. So who cares if Amazon dings us and one goes down? We got the next one. And that's what Amazon's incentivizing right now. So anyways, long story short, that is what we see going on. Like it's a race to the bottom in terms of prices on Amazon. And I've never seen that happen as quickly as it's happening right now. And again, I still have a couple theories on this, and I'll shut up after this. But a couple theories is the US consumer is, I think with all of the inflation and stuff, they're also tightening their belt. So cheaper products are becoming more appealing. And then we're off the COVID high, right? And so all of these new overseas brands, they only know how to compete on price. And so all they're doing is like go lower, go lower, go lower, go lower, because that's the only way they know how to attract a customer. And so you've got this perpetual spiral going downward, and US consumers are willing to purchase the cheaper stuff just because it's, a third of the price of what maybe like a US brand would be, even though they know they're probably not getting a quality product due to the economic environment. I think more US customers are willing to accept that. So with all of that being said, like it's making it more challenging. You can't just like sit back and relax and go sail off into the sunset, be like, I launched this product and it's crushing it. It's like, that's fine.
Go.
It won't be crushing it this same time next year.
Man, wow, that's a ton to unpack, and it's what's shocking is just how you saw the shift, because a lot of things that I'm seeing in marketing are kind of reflecting what you're saying, because a lot of times when I talk about paid advertising, I'm like, hey, a lot of companies got bad at customer care, bad at product development, bad at all the aspects of business, because they could just put money into the paid ad machine and they would just churn new customers, and that was good enough to be profitable. But now it's starting to transition where it's like, now you're not going to be profitable on that initial sale. It's too hard to acquire. So you have to make your profit on the next sale and next sale, next sale. But what you're saying is basically like they changed their policy. And I'm wondering, I'm going to ask you about, if the TikTok shop is really influencing the decisions of Amazon. But you're seeing it just happen like that, like met with the accountant and we decided that we can't be profitable like this. And you're seeing it with MLM models too. I guess one of the
Mhm.
biggest ones, Rodan and Field, is not going to be MLM anymore. And I'm like,
Hmm.
it's because the margin's not there. Do you think this is like the Amazon's kind of behavior? What they're doing is because, or at least partly because of the TikTok shop's success?
I would say less in due to success with TikTok Shop, maybe more of the advent of increased competition of Temu and Shein. And
That
I
makes
think at
sense.
the end of the day, Amazon's focus has always been like customer centric, right? And so Amazon's main goal is always to have like the lowest price of a
Mm.
product, right? That's why they're being sued by the FTC right now, right? Because Amazon will literally, ban your listing or suppress your listing. You'll lose the buy box if they find you're selling your product that's on Amazon. If it's cheaper on Walmart or
Ooh.
Target.com or your own Shopify storefront, Amazon's like, yeah, no, we want the lowest price, so you're done, right? Like you're going to lose the buy box. You're not generating sales from us until you lower your price. Now,
Wow.
so that's what the government's going after. We'll see how that all shakes out. But so Amazon, I think, has always been in the mind of like lower increased competition means lower prices for customers, which means happier customers. So here's kind of my prediction for Amazon. Amazon will continue to usher in the race to the bottom.
Ooh.
They have all the incentives to do so, right? Because guess what? Their FBA fees are only going to go up, right? They're only going to charge customers or sellers more. Their Amazon advertising fees are only going to go up, which they continue, like the cost per clicks continue to rise, just like they did with Google and Facebook and all of that, right? So what's going to happen, and we're already seeing this, and this is why I think it's like so concerning. Back in like 2016, 2017, 2018, I would go, part of the reason why we were able to grow so quickly is like the margins were pretty big on Amazon, right? We could sell like a pack of, let's say, their party invitations, right? We could sell a pack of party invitations on Amazon for like 15 bucks. Okay. If you go to Target and you find something similar, you're looking at like, I don't know, 6.99, 7.99. And I was always like, these idiots giving away so much margin, like people are willing to spend more, right? Well, now I look at it and I'm like, man, I wish I was in retail because what I'm seeing is the exact opposite. Now retail prices are higher. So now you just got cheap crap on Amazon, right? And the best sellers now charging 4.99 because he's happy with a ten cent margin because he's the factory. And so what? He's stolen most of his intellectual property. Nobody else cares, and he's making 10 cents on the dollar, and then he's getting kickbacks from you know many different places. I think that there's a lot of kickbacks that they get by exporting products out of their own countries,
Yeah.
and so he doesn't care as much about that front end profit, right? So anyways, that's what I see is like Amazon, and we know like grocery stores, they work on single digit profit margins, right? I think within the next decade, easy. Amazon, you're as a seller, you're at single digit profit margins unless you have a patent, utility patent on your product, and nobody can come, 10 feet within 10 feet from you. So there's my
Man.
predictions for you, Mark.
I hate to say it, but I kind of saw this coming too. I remember back in the early 2010s, I was working in commercial fitness equipment. And I remember at the show, there was an Amazon rep, and this is probably like 2011 or something. And they were going around to every booth saying, hey, you can put your stuff on Amazon, put your stuff on Amazon. And it's like no fee and blah, blah, blah. And the way I looked at it was like, it feels like you guys are just doing product research to find out what's going to sell, and then you guys are just going to start producing it yourself and selling it for cheaper. Like, is that what's happening? And
But
now it looks like,
I'm not even worried about Amazon trying to enter the market. At least
yeah,
like
that's
if
everybody else.
Amazon cares about intellectual property, right? And so they're going to respect that, right? So I feel less worried like if Amazon enters that market more than I do like just some
Wow,
Some
just
dude
some random.
overseas that just created some fake company, has some fake address. And I think you saw it. You were at Billion Dollar Seller Summit, right?
Mhm.
And I think it was the lady that spoke on, I can't remember her name, but she literally talked about like, here are your different players from overseas. And this is how they play the game. The guys that go into these competitive categories literally have thousands of fake accounts set up that they go in, they get people's passports and their IDs, and they'll go create fake accounts for them. And if one gets taken down, they just move on to the next one. And that's the game that they play. So anyways, no, I'm not worried about Amazon itself selling into my product categories. I'm more worried about the other guys that like they don't play by our rules. They just need to make a couple bucks and they're good and they'll just move on.
We have an amazing limited time offer that you won't want to miss. Introducing the Build Your Brand Pillars course from AI Branding Academy, your gateway to mastering both traditional branding and AI-powered marketing strategies. With this course, you'll gain invaluable skills in creating strong brand foundations that stand out in today's competitive market. Perfect for innovation leaders like you. Don't wait. Take advantage of this special offer before it's gone. Head to aibranding.academy.
Man, that's hard to deal with because, if somebody's not playing by the rules, it doesn't mean if you're an expert at whatever you do, because it doesn't matter. Like they'll just go around it and not care. And there you go. And really it's up to the vendor to essentially provide an environment that is fair for everybody and really the best for the customer, which is why, sometimes the morals and ethics of Amazon are kind of like, what are you guys doing over there? Like, how do you feel good about this? But like, I think it will be the kind of the downfall of it, because you saw the same thing with like, because I remember when eBay was launched, and eBay was like the e-commerce platform. Like if you didn't sell on eBay, you weren't selling
Yeah,
anywhere. They were
it's
pretty,
true.
they were like pre-Amazon at that
Yep.
game. And then eventually they had to evolve into this kind of like niche, like, oh, I only go to eBay if I need some weird vintage item or some specialty item, and then that's all they do. And Amazon, if they continue on this path, they're just doing the same thing except with like cheap crap. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
need a product that I don't care about. Go on to Amazon.
Which I think could be interesting because then that's where maybe like the play I see with TikTok Shop coming into effect, right?
Mm,
Because here's maybe I think Amazon, going back to our earlier conversation, Amazon's only incentivized to like continue to bring on more of those sellers. They just extract more fees, they extract more ad dollars. The more competition there is, Amazon wins at the end of the day. And it
yep.
drives down costs. And to be honest with you, Amazon has so many sellers in their platform at this point, they don't care about one of them, right? Like
Mm,
one loses, who cares? There's next guy up, next guy up, next guy up, right?
yep.
So where does, TikTok Shop come into play? I feel like TikTok Shop, if you have influencers speaking highly of the product and they are having to show the product
Mm.
on camera, it's hard to hide cheap crap on camera, right? That
Yeah.
product is either good or bad unless they're like, I don't know, like holding it together with glue, even though it's like falling apart. I don't know. But I feel like you would see that across multiple videos because you'll typically find if something's going viral on TikTok, like you'll find multiple creators talking about the exact same product. So I don't know, maybe is that the future of e-commerce? Like it's more like you trust certain individuals because
Mm.
you don't trust the platforms anymore because it's all just become cheap garbage. Um,
I think so, except for, all the new AI talking head generators where it's like it looks like a real person talking about whatever. And
exactly.
now it's just those same
Exactly.
guys set up 1,000 avatars and 1,000 accounts. And
Yeah.
you're just like, yeah, that's why it always comes back to like the platform. Like the platform needs to be the one that says, no, you're not allowed to set up 1,000 fraudulent accounts. There's no way
Yeah.
it's not somewhat
Yeah.
obvious. Like, oh yeah, we had 1 million people sign up in the course of 3 hours, and they're all selling the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
and you figure the pattern recognition of AI, if nothing else, would be able to say like that's not a real person. But they have plausible deniability at the corporate level to be like, we didn't know they were fake accounts. Like, what do you mean? I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh, you guys
Yep.
don't know. So, well, let's talk about the solution. So, because
Yeah.
I used to do Amazon back in the early 2010s, or maybe in the mid 2010s when I had a few supplement brands, but I didn't use Amazon as like the primary tool. I basically used it as a marketing tool to make people aware of the brand, buy a product,
Yeah.
and then try to convert them to, the shop. What were you kind of telling people to prepare for the situation of declining returns?
Yeah, I personally think like still to this day, there's no greater place to go launch a new brand than on Amazon, right? Like the sun is still shining there. It's not a, completely diminished opportunity. Now, it's harder than it ever has been, that's for sure. But here's what you need to be able to do. You need to be able to run 10 times faster than you previously were. So that means if you could sit back and be like, oh, I launched this product and 3 years later, it's still making me money. Well, guess what? If you only have a year to make money, then that means you've got to have your next winning product already in the pipeline.
Mm.
So, thus needing to have a very efficient operating system, right? How often are you seeing like, ooh, design trends are changing it. So I'm tweaking this. I'm seeing this as a up and coming product. So I don't know, maybe it's more similar to like the drop shipping method or all those like
Okay.
print on demand people that, as soon as like a significant event happens, right? You see like they're the first ones, they have some Facebook ad. It's like this literally just happened 5 hours ago and now there's a t-shirt with that whatever,
Yeah.
saying on it or something like that. I think speed to market, I think is going to be invaluable. And then secondly, I think that for e-commerce brands, distribution, I think becomes your biggest moat out of anything that you can talk about. I think taking the brand, so here's the advantage a US brand has compared to all those overseas sellers. The overseas sellers are not building brands,
Mm.
period. They're all about how can I make a quick buck? That's it. And so their branding is terrible. In fact, like so easy to spot them on the Amazon marketplace because it's typically the names that you're like, what in the like this is about like
One, two, three, four.
10 different letters of like can't even pronounce this thing. So there's your indicator. If you're like, oh, I wonder if this is from an overseas seller. Like if you can't pronounce the brand name, then yes, that's exactly what
Probably.
it is. Um, and that's because they can go get it trademarked really
Oh.
easily through the USPTO. And so the government's like, well, ain't nobody using this word.
No, you got
And
it.
you got it. So then they get access to all of Amazon's brand registry tools.
Oh,
And that's
I didn't
the
know that.
reason why they come up with these stupid names. But in my opinion, they're not investing the proper time. So like I said, they're not building a real brand. So what does a US consumer do? You're able to stay up to date with the trends a lot better than they can. That's number one. So, but you've got to go quicker and you can't rest on your laurels, right? B, I think distribution becomes even more important. So, how do you get into more um, retail stores, right? How do you turn your brand into a more omni-channel presence? How do you get on all of those new platforms, such as like a TikTok shop, and get influencers and people talking about your stuff? So you're not just relying on, I hope somebody searches on Amazon and I hope I'm ranked to number one and that nobody touches me for the next 5 years. But if you have all of these different pieces coming in to your pipeline, I think you can survive. And again, on Amazon, you can still make money, but you've got to be willing to move and again, just kind of get the distribution moat because the overseas brands can't do that. They're not going to be able to go to Target and pitch their brand and be like, you should let us on your shelves. They're going to be like, yeah, no,
Okay.
right? I don't care if you're the number one seller on Amazon. I can't pronounce your brand name. And this just doesn't even like you have no cohesiveness to your brand. So, anyways, there's my ramblings.
Hey, no, I love it. Well, and I'm all about branding, so it fits with what I'm doing. But it goes into a lot of what you're saying too, because with the influencers specifically, like I do think, and it might not be influencers per se. I actually think media platforms are going to get more important in terms of what people trust. But the fact of the matter is, if you aren't getting that input, if people aren't talking about your product, and if you're not getting into communities by providing not just one good product, but probably multiple products to get people. Because I think product selection is just as much about branding as anything else. In that regards, how could somebody like say they get the product that, okay, this is going to be bread and butter for the next 6 to 9 months. How could they start to produce a train of new products that they could then start to cycle out as the previous products start to lose favor?
Yeah, exactly. I think that you need to be up to date with the design trends, right? And it depends on what that product is, right? So if you've launched a new spatula that's absolutely crushing it, right? Then it's like, well, what else do people buy along with that spatula, right? So diversifying along that like buyer path, so to speak, that's like, well, if you need this, you'll probably need that, right? So I would say like continuing to expand that way can help. But let's say you launch that spatula and it's because it has a rainbow design all over it, right? Well, that means that rainbow design is probably going to come out of favor 6 months from now when everybody else copies you and they all have a rainbow design on their thing. So you need to be thinking like, well, then what is the next design, right? And again, I think that still as a US consumer, right, that's your biggest advantage that you have, because those guys don't know, they're not taught creativity in school. They're taught more like A plus B equals C, and that's
Here's the
all that they
formula.
know. Yeah, that's all they know. So it's like, I only know how to copy you. So as long as you stay 2 steps ahead, right, and you're always launching and thinking about the next thing, you will stay ahead of them, because the best thing they know how to do is just copy. But you need to be willing to accept it and be like, all right, so what? Let's play the price game and we'll exit this thing out, but we're making new margin on the new product we launched.
Wow. Oh, it sounds tiring. But
It is.
I am seeing a trend towards even the educational companies that aren't pushing the whole like, oh, scale, and then you set your team in place, the Tim Ferriss model of building companies, where it's like, yeah, then you just hire some jerks and they run the company and everything's cool. Like, no, if you're not involved in the business, if you're not evolving with the business, if the product offer is not evolving, if all these things aren't changing along with how the rest of the world seems to be changing every 5 seconds, then you're probably going to be irrelevant really quickly. And I think, that 6 to 9 months is actually pretty accurate, no matter what you've done and how successful you've been with anything. It's like, okay, well, what have you done for me today? And
Exactly. No, I think you hit the nail on the head there, right? I think the best, asset that we all have is like our own ingenuity and creativity, right? And with the advent of AI and chat GPT, you should be able to move things a lot quicker. And hopefully, here's what I recommend to any business owner. You best be getting your time back so that you're not spending a bunch of time on administrative stuff in the business, so you can be moving the puck forward in everything that we just described. You got to be thinking like, how do I innovate on my product? How do I stay ahead of the trends? How do I be aware of the trends? And if you can do that as the business owner and always just be like thinking like, what else, it's like what Elon Musk does, right? He has this like grand vision of the future and like what it could potentially look like. And then it'll go like bring it to reality. And that's what I think humans naturally crave, is like something new, something unique and different. And if you can serve that up as the CEO of your business, you're driving that forward, I think you'll always stay ahead of the game. You just don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, I just follow people. Because I think that's
some people are totally happy. It's funny because sometimes you meet those people and they're just like, oh yeah, and then I ripped off this and then I did that, and oh, that got shut down, but who cares? And then they're just like jumping around. You're like, holy crap, I wish I didn't give a crap as much as you do because
For real.
I can do half of that stuff. I care about everything I sell and I really want it to perform. And it's like, it's a totally different mindset. Not to say that the other one is not effective. It's definitely can be effective, but why not just build something good in the meantime and take care of your customers? And then maybe it's slightly less work just because they inherently trust you and what you sell because you've done it a million times before. That way's way harder though. I think people,
Yeah.
both ways are tough. It's like sometimes you hear some of those marketing methods of like set up 50 accounts and then you rip off here and then you schedule there and then you hire a, up level, Upwork person here and then you do all these things. I'm like, man, you could have just sat down and just made a business plan and spent money on some standard marketing, and it would probably be the same amount of work, and you wouldn't have to worry about getting shut down every 5 seconds and going through that pain.
Yep.
But who knows? It's I think it's a personal preference maybe that people have.
You're preaching to the choir.
Well, this has been fantastic. I love the view. I love how you've kind of broken down kind of the change when it happened, why it happened. And I think, you've really provided some clear answers as to the solution to the omni-channel approach, fixing your distribution channels, continuing to innovate and really understand what people want. Like all of these are really good, essential tips for how to build a good business. So thank you so much for that.
Mark, it's been a pleasure being on.
Where can people learn more about you and get some more tips?
Yeah, so my podcast is Ecom Breakthrough, ecom with 2 M's. And that's where I share actionable strategies to help 7-figure company or e-commerce companies grow to 8 figures and beyond. So it's always like very like action oriented. I leave what I'm known for is like at the end of each episode, I wrap it up with like, here are 3 actual like implementing actionable things you can do in your business from what you just heard today.
Oh, I love that. I might have to steal it. I'll let you know.
There you let me
Because I'm like, oh, I can record that after. Like, here's the lesson. Because I always think that sometimes you go back to like edit episodes and you're like, oh, I really wish I wrote that down when it happened so I could have quoted it later. But you figured it out.
That's
So
right.
I
There you
really
go.
enjoyed having you on. Great tips. And I'm sure we'll have you back soon to talk about some more e-commerce branding and product innovation.
Looking forward to it, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Josh. And thank you so much for listening. This has been the AI Branding Podcast, where we integrate marketing, branding, AI, and content all into one system with the promise of preparing you for a future that's full of more changes and awesome tech and hopefully great success for you. So tune in again.